I think songs would go when they're not necessarily, like if there's a bar scene, there's going to be music in the scene. So that's for budgetary purposes, to help them at least wrap their brains around the fact that there's more music in this script than they're thinking. Many times I'll meet on something and they'll say, oh, there's only 4 songs in it, and then they cut to there's like 25 songs or something, spots in it. Because music it's necessary. It plays everywhere, and it also informs the action and helps, informs the characters. I mean, it's a obvious and necessary tool if you do it. If you're open to using it. So that's a lot of times where we'll start. Gwen's a whole different situation. And by the way, I mean, he's someone who, when he's thinking of a movie, when he wants to write, he'll go into his record room and he's inspired by his own albums. He's got a whole room in his house set up like a record store, basically. He's got vinyl and cassettes and all kinds of things, and he'll be inspired by the music that he has, and that's how he'll start coming up with the story. And when I start working with him, a lot of time I'll go in and he'll have me sit down and he'll start telling me the basic idea of the story, and he'll stop and put the needle on the record and play a track or whatever. So it's really kind of amazing to work with someone that loves music that much and loves film music that much. There's so many composers who are like, I don't know about Quentin. Like, you should know about him because he knows more about you than anybody else. He's a big fan of film music. So, why went off on a tangent? So.
No, this is great information. I think it's so important to really understand that process. And I mean, there's a lot of filmmakers in the building, right? Can I see some filmmakers? Raise your hands, all the filmmakers in there. So it's definitely a lot of people that want to hear that, to understand what that process looks like, and to even see that how they can maybe draw music as inspiration for their storytelling process, before it goes to the screen. And so I just wanted to kind of pivot the conversation towards working with artists, because we do have artists here on our panel. And so once you've identified with the director, the vibe, and you give your suggestions, how does it usually translate into the artist's involvement? Is it something that you just literally go out and secure, or do you get the information from, or some suggestions from the directors?
Oh, well, it's always, the way I approach the job is I always approach it as a support for the director.
Okay.
I'm not going to walk into a director's office or room or whatever and say, you need to do what I say. I'm going to go in and we're going to find it together. If they're not very well versed in music or whatever, I'm going to help them. I'm going to give them a bunch of different kinds of music for a particular cue and help them come to the realization of what they want to use. I mean, I'm not going to give them something way off track, but I'm going to, try and help people find what they want. And the same goes with artists. The thing, one of those movies was called Wish I Was Here, and it was a Zach Braff movie, and one of the things that I'll do is go to artists and ask them to write original songs for a project. And a lot of times it helps if the project's at least a rough assembly, or at least there's a rough version to show to an artist so that they get an idea of what the story is and everything, right? That's how you...
Yeah.
It never hurts to ask, and don't underestimate the power of passionate letters or passionate requests. If you're passionate about your story, if you're passionate about what you want, that conveys, it's great. It's great currency. It's helped secure some artists that no way I thought would have done something for these little movies that, so it's kind of great.
Well, yeah, kind of talked about that. I mean, I was in that shoe literally 2 years ago with my first film, Where Is Beauty, where Goapele came on board, and I would have never dreamt of it. I would have never expected it. And I sent her the script, and she was inspired by it and decided to join our team. Goapele, you want to kind of give some context around that?
Yeah. I've been doing music for I guess about 20 years also, and one of the things that brought me to LA is wanting to get more involved with film, soundtrack-wise and acting, and I was just hoping for things that would be in alignment with what I would want to put out into the world, because I feel like, I don't know, especially for women of color, it can be very limiting as far as the characteristics and the characters, you know, that are options out there. So when a mutual friend, you know, showed me your script, I was just like, there's nothing about this that I don't like, you know, and I related to the main character, but also the parts of me that were different felt like it would be fun to express that. And, you know, as a visual artist instead of a musical artist, and a whole different look and all that, but just the general tone I could feel and was into it. So I think, you know, you came at me in a humbling way, but I felt humbled, you know, when I came in there, like, because, you know, I've been doing music for a while, but it's totally different, you know, being in front of the camera. So it was an exciting opportunity for me too. And what an amazing crew that you had, just like it felt like family, and everyone that was there because they wanted to be there. So, yeah.
Thank you. We do have the writer of the film, April Mabry, here. Thank you so much, April, for writing this amazing film. And I think this is probably a good point for us to show it. All right, let's show Where is Beauty. relevant to play this, this film for you all. For one, to kind of, because it's a silent film, right? It doesn't have any dialogue, so the music was the most important element to me for the story. And also, I wanted to make sure that you were able to see and hear what Goapele's song that she was able to have featured in the film. And one thing I wanted to mention is you talked about passion earlier, and just knowing that and being able to connect with that. And everybody who I worked with on the music side of this film showed me that. And I had an Emmy Award-winning composer who literally came in I pretty much had no budget, right? And he was able to really help curate the moods that I wanted to change throughout the storytelling process. So, at the beginning, I wanted it to be kind of like a lot of self-reflection, a lot of uncertainty. That was kind of like the energy that I wanted it to kind of feel. And then throughout the piece, I wanted it to kind of, show journey. So when she hit the street, you heard that music, that world music that kind of felt like she's about to embark on something huge. And then I really felt that it was important to kind of have those moments of silence. We just heard the natural sound, because I didn't want the sound to look like a music video. Because, that could be easily done, right? It was with no dialogue. And so it was really an amazing team that brought it together. And Goapele, I just want you to kind of touch on that process when we were together. And I'm like, hey Goapele, you got a song? I need a song. You got something? I would love for you to contribute something.
Yeah.
Tell me, I would love to explain that process for you to really choose power, because I felt like it was a perfect fit.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about it, you were like, we want to have a Fela Kuti kind of vibe, in the film, which would have been really expensive, right?
Right.
I mean, just to be honest. And so that was kind of the dream. And then I was working on a bunch of new music at the time, and I was working on that song because I think I had said, well, I have something, but I'm not sure, and it's not finished. But it just kind of aligned that, when the edit, was being finalized and everything, that I was finishing this song that had some, sample of live African drumming on it, and it kind of, we wanted an uplifting type of vibe at the end, that when she's cutting her hair, it's her coming into her power and self-acceptance, and the song was just about not dimming your light and just tapping into that and not hiding behind anything. So I was like, I think this would work, but tell me what you think. And that's always vulnerable for me. I feel like sharing something new, but I felt like I like how it married.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for that. And I feel like part of the process, the creative process, is being comfortable in that vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
And so I know for me, being a first-time filmmaker, it was super vulnerable to even put it out and work with people, and really not having a track record or experience to have that confidence. And so I don't know, Mary, you want to talk on when you're working with artists that maybe their first time working on a film, and having those moments of sharing that art and not being sure. How does that process work for you?
A lot of times when we're looking for music, or looking for a song, or wanting an artist to write something original for the project, it really depends on being absolutely good in your, we call them briefs, in your description of what you're looking for. It's really important. So sometimes, like we were talking earlier, that there's a scene that I was talking about where the director wanted to just slap some jazz in the background, and I was like, no, I don't think that, all due respect.
A whole different character, whole different taste of what the character that you saw.
Right, exactly, and something that we've been building on for this one particular character, this cool, strong woman character. And songs are, songs are real estate in a movie, basically. It's like, if you only have 4 spots for songs, you gotta throw something away on something that's just a, afterthought. So it's important to really consider lyrical content, consider, mood and instrumentation, and how it makes the scene feel. I mean, maybe in concept, one song would seem right and seem thematic and seem like it works, you know, and then when you put it to picture and put it into, you know, put the dialogue on top of it, it really pulls the audience's ear away from what they need to hear from the scene. So there's all kinds of things that go into that when you're discussing with an artist what you want, what you ideally be able to receive.
Yeah, and just kind of like to kind of piggyback on that with lyrical content. I know you've done music for other films. So like when that request comes up, like what is that process like? Like what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, well, there was a movie, Baggage Claim, that came out a couple years ago, and Julia, the music director, had reached out to me to see if I had something for a specific part in the movie, and I think it was another one of those times where she was like, we really want this Ella Fitzgerald song, but that would be really hard to get, and it was like a classic Ella Fitzgerald song, but they wanted it to feel jazz and nostalgic and feel classic, and it didn't have to be from a specific time, but it was just definitely had a specific tone to it. So I collaborated with Ricky Minor, and you know, they showed me a basic clip for what they were looking for. And I mean, I grew up listening to jazz blues, but a lot of the original music I do is a little different than classic jazz. So we just kind of had to get in that frame of mind and listen to a bunch of song references, honestly, that could kind of take me to that place, and then they wanted it to feel like the characters were just falling in love, so having the lyrics reflect that and just and feel authentic and emote. And so it was nice to have someone to collaborate with, and we ended up, you know, we had like live streams and all of those things, and kind of, I don't know, it was neat. It was almost like playing a character, because I had to tap into a different part of me than I usually would as a songwriter, and even performing it, singing it really slow and sultry and not as subtle as I would for my normal personality, but it felt like it fit right. So I think trusting the people that you work with and being willing to go a little bit out of your comfort zone is good, in that if you're creating something for film or TV, that it really is authentic to the visuals, you know, and not like just, this is the best song I can do, but it's, you don't want it to be distracting, you know.
So I do want to open it up for questions, but I want to find out how many musicians are in the room. Okay, I think we probably have about 15 minutes for Q&A. Is that cool? All right. Does anyone have any questions out there in the audience? All right, back there. Can you stand up and state your name? There you go.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I go by B for VCR. Love your work, by the way. Love it. So inspired by it. I'm alive. Yes. So there seems to be like a pipeline to music supervisors and filmmakers in LA when you want to submit your music to different short films, etc. How do you access that pipeline, or go about how would you like to be approached from like an artist standpoint? Hi, I'm Veronica, and I would love to submit my music.
Okay, there's
As thoroughly as possible, and understanding what attracts people, you know, knowing that, you know, having that namesake, whether it's the star of your film or whether it's a producer of the film, you know, mentioning what your expectation is and what your passion points are also are helpful tips, because like we said earlier, you know, Mary presented it, that the passion part is really what drives us, right, as filmmakers and storytellers and musicians. So it's kind of like being able to make that connection is so important. Any other questions?
Theo, just a quick question, Mary. If if a director comes to you and knows that he has a certain song that he wants or she, what happens if you can't get the rights to that song? Go through some maybe scenario that's happened.
How do I answer that that's going to be best? Because I can give you all kinds of examples of how I did not have to tell Quentin Tarantino we couldn't have a song he wanted. Because the people were hard to find and they were in out of Mongolia and didn't have a phone and I don't speak, So there was plenty of that I was able to find. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I like to tell filmmakers is there's such a wealth of music out there that isn't on major labels, that isn't known. It's so great to be able to have an open mind and open heart when you're making your art, so that you don't absolutely have to have, the Rolling Stones, or you don't have to have, Jay-Z. It's oftentimes when you have to make a second choice or something, you'll come across something that's even more cool and inspiring and unique, So that's my answer for that, is that yes, sometimes, you can get turned down. Sometimes an artist or a music publisher will say that's not enough money or whatever, or they'll say they don't want to be involved in a scene that has to do with, violence or, whatever the scene content is. When I'm reaching out to music publishers and record companies to get quotes on a piece of music, I'll describe the scene, and if there's something going on in it, I will say, there happens to be a lot of blood in this one, the reason there is this kind of blood is because Django had to, go through this in order to come out the other side victorious, so there's ways to describe it so it's not quite so, oh my God, but there is always the possibility you won't get it.
Yeah, that story has to, connecting it all the way back to the story seems like the most important thing when trying to, outreach and sell and pitch, whether it's on your side or whether it's on the artist side, right?
Right.
Any other questions? April?
I have a question. So, this one's for Mary. For people who are interested in becoming music supervisors, what do they need to do? Schooling, do they need to is there such a thing as an assistant music supervisor before you become one? Does it take about 9 years? What does that look like? And then on a side note, as you introduced me to a lot of songs. One of my favorites as far as amplifying stories of music was the scene with Jesus Christ, Kill Bill, which she Malcolm McCrae. No one ever told me about her.
Yes.
Oh my God.
A matchup.
And it just really resonated in that song, for that scene. And so that just shows you how important music is for movies and to also telling stories.
Yes. So becoming a music supervisor. You know what? I wish I had a succinct answer for that because I kind of fell into it. But I would say some of the things I wish I had. I wish I'd had more record company experience, music publishing experience, interning at those kinds of places, because then I would have a more well-rounded view of the business before I jumped into this part of it. As it is, it took me a little while to learn all of that. So I would say that'd be great to be able to get those kinds of backgrounds. There are classes that are offered, but I think also there's a guild of music supervisors that you can reach out to and find out about if anybody's looking for a music coordinator or interning, or a lot of the people that I had with me, one guy in particular who was amazing, came to me and said, I will work for you for free for 3 weeks, and if after 3 weeks you don't need me anymore, I'll go away. I swear after 3 weeks he was indispensable. He was so good. He was good on the phone. He was great. He had great musical taste, and so don't underestimate that. The power of being a good presence, can really be a good thing too. So I would say reach out to the Guild of Music Supervisors too.
Here coming from Paris. I have a question for you. Like music can be so overused, especially when it comes to evoke emotion. And I think as filmmaker is one of our bigger set. I'm probably more fan of music than film in terms of emotion. So I'm interested to know where and when is the momentum for you to use music rather than just playing, the film itself. I think music adds so much, but it can also destroy the film and the cliche it's overused. So in the editing room, I'm always like obsessed about when I'm available to use classic, for example, or is it so cliche? So when is the momentum for you to use music to add to the story, and when is the moment to say no, you don't need music right here, let the actors do their thing?
Hey, I think that's a good question for everybody. When to use restraint? For you and for you, because you talked about that as well.
Right.
Yeah. So using restraint in music choices is important, just as important. When we are starting to work on a film with a composer, the director will have a spotting session. So you sit in the room with the composer and you go through the film and talk about where music can go. And that's one of the first places where you would start discussing it. But every film is different, every filmmaker is different, everybody has different orientations and associations with the way they want to tell a story and how they want to use music. It's unique to you as a storyteller. And I would say, be bold. Be bold in your choices, be bold in your uses, do what feels right to you, because nobody's got the right answer. Quentin Tarantino uses obscure music. He uses, David Bowie in a World War II movie. I mean, those are bold, and that's why they work. They're bold choices, and they're used they're used boldly. So I'd say, do what feels best for you. And you said, you were talking about music.
Yeah, so I think, my background's audio. I used to be an audio engineer for news, and I did that for about 10 years. So when I went into this film, of course, I'm like, okay, it sounds similar. Like, I kind of knew, I didn't know the songs, because I wasn't a DJ or anything, but I knew that I wanted it to sound a certain type of way, and I wanted it to have a authenticity, and that's why I wanted to really make sure that those moments of transition, because I kind of looked at this 3 parts, because, filmmaking can be mathematical too, right? There's beats, there's scripting. And so I didn't write the script, but I still knew that visually and the way the story moved, I wanted to have these different chapters. And so in doing that, I felt that silence, that ambient noise, and that just realness was a good transition point. For that, to kind of let people kind of take a moment to really reflect on what's actually happening on screen. Because, without the dialogue, I mean, it's amazing how many people have come up to me and told me their interpretation of the film.
It's different.
Yeah, because it's it's all left up to interpretation. And so I think, I was relying on the music and those beats and, to really drive it. And I think Power was the perfect piece to kind of wrap it in a bow. Does anybody have any other questions?
Being courageous and sharing your gifts to the world. And all 3 of you, if you could answer, what would you want to be like? What's leave a legacy, all 3 of you, as we speak, as we all are, as human beings. And the art of life is what we have today, is our heart, our human soul. So I would like to know what keeps you guys fresh. What keeps you fresh? That's it, what keeps you fresh in this?
He was saying, for each of us, what legacy would we want to leave in the world, and what keeps us fresh.
What keeps you going? We all
and
wake
inspired.
up with different energies on a day, on a second.
I mean, I think for me, my goal I loved music and creative arts ever since I can remember. I mean, I don't know, since I was a baby. And I think by the time I was around my daughter's age, probably around 10, I was like, I want to be a famous singer and dancer and do all of this and waitress at the same time, because I thought that was like my fantasy, like you waitress in the day and then you get on stage at night and you know the lights shine, because I think that's what I saw, like you know, it's hard to make it, you know, as an artist. And so I'm really thankful, first of all, just that I have been able to rely on doing music for a long time now. And one of the things that keeps me going is running into people that tell me that they were affected by something that I've done. Because singing something I could do by myself in the house, and the point of having a platform is to be able to have a connection. And I think, so when I was a kid and I was dreaming of what I wanted to do, I was thinking, I want to have a positive impact on the world, and I don't want to be in politics or any of that, but I want to somehow have a positive impact on change in my community and the larger community. So I think that's something that I always reflect on along the way, and not that that has to be woven into every lyric I'm doing or something like that, but it's kind of the bigger picture in my heart that I don't know, helps keep me grounded. And I think the other thing is, once I start getting too comfortable or on autopilot, think about what is the next place I need to go to grow, you know, because I want to keep evolving and I want to keep getting better. And how can I be around other inspiring people to push me and that know things that I don't know.
You go next?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess for me, as far as just like my purpose or passion moving forward, is I've always felt comfortable helping people, like, you know, just constantly being that person that can help or amplify or add value to situations. So that, along with tapping into my creativity, because I love creating, whether it's mixing, mixing audio, whether it's putting together a film, whether it's curating a conversation, an experience. That's something that I also can do for free, and I've done it for free, And so once I realized that what I was passionate about equated to what I could do for free and be happy and do it with a smile on my face, I realized that that was the intersection of creativity and helping people and having impact. And so, I'm just grateful to be able to, like Goapele said, have a career to do that. And I think what really helps keep me centered and moving forward, and that's my reset button, is seeing people like yourself, in the audience, and meeting random people in random circumstances, just speak some type of wisdom or some type of positive antidote, or just share a piece of themselves with me, because then that adds, for me to kind of consider when I'm still doing my storytelling or when I'm creating experiences, how I can make it well-rounded and encompassing of as many people as I possibly can.
All great answers. Some are hers and some are hers. Done. Honestly, it's a hard question to answer, but I do feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like, and I feel like you can find, the reason for what you do and justify what you do. One thing that I've been lucky enough to experience is how, especially in working with a director like Quentin Tarantino, who uses these obscure pieces of music from, from many years ago. Sometimes an artist that we reach out to hasn't had a source of income for a long time and has actually fallen off the revenue stream. Their information isn't kept up correct, and so they're not receiving royalties or whatever. I mean, I've had experiences where, been able to hook people back up with their royalty revenue and stuff, which has been amazing. And so similar ways that he has revived actors' careers. He's revived a lot of careers, so it's been kind of lovely to be able to be part of that. And that's that. And also, just I love filmmaking and I love storytelling. I love helping and putting those things together. So it's pretty it's a pretty groovy. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And just to kind of add context, so just so you know where this panel was inspired from, about 2-3 weeks ago, we were all in the same room. Mary was in a panel with Goapele and our music supervisor, Angela Jolabet, at the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences. And I was so inspired, at that panel, and I was like, oh my God, we can bring it to the DTLA Film Festival, but in a smaller, more intimate space, to really kind of like give you all the exposure points and to be able to connect and hear from two amazing women. And the connection that was made after the film and before the film, authentically with Mary, just goes to show testament to what she just said. Because she literally, met me that day. I've been crazy with this festival, and she's been so gracious and being here on time, responsive to me, and and so open to everything. So let's just thank you so much. So yes, please, and also Goapele, and I love Goapele. Like Goapele is so amazing. Like, it was such a pleasure working with her, and I just want to take this moment to show my gratitude to both you ladies. And I don't know if there's any final questions. Okay.
I did have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. As women in the business, trying to work with others and everything, what are the challenges that you kind of encounter, or are there being a woman, trying to get, in there and making connections and, seal deals, stuff like that. So I just wanted to
As a woman in this industry, how to make connections, you were saying?
Yeah, as far as the challenges that you
And the challenges that you face.
the challenges, and if you do, how do you overcome them and get through it? Just being, an artist or a creative.
Yeah, I think as an artist it's hard anyways, but being a woman, it can add an extra dimension to it. And I would say, as a woman, probably one of the challenges is it's a pretty male-dominated industry in entertainment, period. And I think one of the gifts and things that's been really valuable to me is having a good team around me. And it doesn't mean coming into a room and having a big old entourage and having to stand out, but it means having someone with me that I trust. And so when I'm going to meetings and I'm not sure what people's intentions are, and I'm not sure if people are being authentic, and I think as a woman, it's kind of oh, they're being open and friendly. Are they interested in my talent and what I'm doing? Or are, do they think I was pretty and they're yeah, we can go to lunch and we can. So I think having someone that you trust that can be a buffer so that you can stay open and somebody else can kind of watch your back is helpful. And I think it also makes the intentions more obvious.
Yes.
You'll feel it more early on and you'll be safe. And you should be able to want to be trusting, you know what I mean, and not have to. Exactly. So I think that's one of the things. And also, building a team so that when you need to follow up with professional conversations that have to do with money and clearing songs and not being taken advantage of or anything, that there's other people that can be involved in those conversations. Sometimes when you're just speaking on your own behalf for business, you're not taken as seriously. You usually get paid way less. And it's also, I find, drains from the creative experience, because then you're caught up in the drama of that. And I've definitely even had friends that I've worked with where I felt the proposal was going to be one way, and then the paperwork, I'm this doesn't reflect any of that, and I'd rather keep that separate.
Exactly.
You can have a legal team, you can, manager, you can hire a friend until you get that, a bright friend. You know what I'm saying? So.
I do. That was awesome.
And I'll just add to that because I would work at NBC Universal for 6.5 years, and I was a leader with their women's network there. And so part of what we did is create programming and exposed women, professionals on ways to kind of like add value and know what our value was. And what our value is rather. And so I think that's the biggest point. I think as women sometimes, we might think we need to know 100% of something in order for us to feel fully committed or confident about it. But just know that men, and I see a lot of guys in here, men, you can attest. If you guys know about 50% of something, you're still going to jump up and say, I can do it. Am I right? Men, am I right? So just having that level of confidence that men have and knowing that we're capable of all things when we set our mind to it is, I think, something as women that we need to continuously remind ourselves of. And also, like Goapele said, have a tight team. I mean, everything that I've been able to accomplish in life has been because of amazing women in my life, as well as, that's been able to give me that, give me those opportunities. But I had to show up and be in the room, be present, and know what it was that I was offering and understand what that value meant and be confident in the way that I present myself. So that way people respect me, and if they don't, then it's a situation I need to be a part of. And so you have to also know what that barrier point is and not compromise,
Yeah, and I think also trusting yourself. If you feel really strongly about a creative idea, that's like your personality and what you're bringing to it. And I think that there's some people